Let not your heart be troubled. You are listening to the Sean Hannity Radio Show podcast. Hey, like most of you, I had trouble sleeping, but I sleep better than ever. And you know what? It's all because of a pillow. Mike Lindell's My Pillow has changed my life for the better, and it works. What makes My Pillow so different is their patented adjustable fill. Now, you can adjust the patented fill to your exact individual comfort need and get the support you absolutely must have. And that means you fall asleep faster, you stay asleep longer. It just works. Now, millions of people have already discovered that My Pillow works for them, and now it's time for you to experience My Pillow for yourself. Just go to MyPillow.com. Use the promo code Sean, and when you do, Mike Lindell will give you his best offer ever. Buy one My Pillow, get another one absolutely free. Now, My Pillow's made in the USA, has a 10-year warranty and a 60-day unconditional money-back guarantee, so you have nothing to lose. So get started and get the sleep you crave and deserve. MyPillow.com, promo code Hannity, and get Mike Lindell's special 2-for-1 offer. That's MyPillow.com, promo code Sean. I don't even know where to begin because the information is shocking and more spectacular by the minute and the hour, and we've got a lot of ground to cover today. Is just one way to say all of this. We're learning that apparently Comey shared all his information with Mueller and was brought in early in the... Comey is the guy that leaked to the Columbia professor to get his buddy Mueller appointed special counsel in the first place. Comey is the guy that made it possible by writing... Well, first, when he first wrote the exoneration, he's admitting Hillary committed numerous felonies about how she mishandled classified information, destroyed classified information, how not having her email server in a secure place, how it resulted in foreign entities and agencies being able to capture the information and probably the 33,000 emails. He's the guy. He was the one that worked with Strzok. And now it gets worse from there. And, you know, now we've got Strzok and Page discussing how to remove the text messages. We've got 5 months, critical months, of text messages between Peter Strzok and his mistress, lawyer, girlfriend at the FBI, Lisa Page, on how to remove messages. I mean, it shocks and should shock the conscience of every single person. By the way, the Judicial Watch chief is urging Sessions to seize FBI computers. I don't think that's a bad idea at this hour. I think that's actually a pretty good idea because who knows, God knows how long they're going to last until somebody gets in there and takes them out. Now we've got talk of a secret society and the FBI meeting the day after all of this. And I'm like, you can't make this up in a novel. It's getting so bad. You're looking at the biggest abuse of power in the history of the United States of America. And we still don't even have the memo. And the memo, I'm told, is the tip of the spear and the tip of the iceberg here. And there's so much more that is going to be coming, which shows that we really need to get to the bottom line of all of this because it's the Constitution that is now in play here. You know, when we first had 10,000 texts, now we know there are 50,000 texts between, you know, Trump hating, Hillary loving, Peter Strzok, and lovebirds, Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, are now under review by the Office of the Inspector General. But we still have the 5 months of missing text messages. How did they go missing? How are they not recoverable? Later on, we've got Bill Binney's going to join us. He's the guy that has told us after 34 years at the NSA that every text, every email, every phone call is metadata stored. Philip Haney, who's the author of See Something, Say Nothing. He's another guy with 30-plus years experience and a whistleblower. And he's the guy that said, when Obama became president, I was told to destroy all the intel. He's one of the founding members of the Department of Homeland Security. So... you know, we've got the FBI losing 5 months of text messages during the key period when the dossier came out, when Flynn was investigated, when Comey was fired, when the special counsel was appointed, when the president said, yeah, it looks like I was spied upon. He was. And we first broke this story almost a year ago. That's how long this goes on. And for those of you that have been frustrated, why don't we get to the conclusion? Because it's not how, literally, they don't want us to get to the conclusion. They don't want this to unravel the way it's been unraveling here. They don't want to be caught in their nefarious and illegal activities. But what you have is, and why this is so profoundly different and so much bigger than Watergate, is we have a group of people that are trying to rig and fix pretty much everything. And it starts with Hillary herself. I cannot to this day understand why more people were not outraged when Donna Brazile writes a book saying she rigged the primary election. How is that not huge news? If I'm a Bernie supporter, I'm apoplectic. I'm angry. I'm frustrated. Now, I do have a sidebar that there were people that were frustrated and angry and tried to do something about it. But that's a different story for a different day. I would be livid. And now we've got the smoking gun evidence. And I go back to where we were yesterday with Loretta Lynch. Now she's in the loop knowing that, in fact, Hillary was going to be exonerated and the fix was in. I'll get to that in a minute. And then you have Hillary with the dossier. What is the dossier really all about? The dossier is spending $12 million, Hillary Clinton campaign money funneled through one lawyer, DNC money that she's controlling, according to Donna Brazile, the DNC chair at the time, going to the same lawyer, full of lies, propaganda, salacious details, unproven, unchecked, never mind unproven. And that is to influence the general election, and then being shopped to the news media in coordination with Glenn Simpson and the Hillary Clinton campaign. Okay, so you rigged the primary. Why not try to rig the general with phony information from Russia? I thought the very thing the left said that they hated so much. And in the process, the only reason you get to remain candidate is because the FBI rigged their investigation into you, and they've got the smoking gun evidence that James Comey, Peter Strzok, and now appears others, probably Andrew McCabe. Then we got Bruce Orr's issues. Then we've got Loretta Lynch brought into this, and that she knew that it was never going to happen. And the timeline for them is devastating. No wonder 5 months of critical text messages disappeared, because they're not following any rule of law in all of this. You know, I agree with Judicial Watch. They're now urging Sessions, seize the FBI computers. Do it now. I mean, ask Paul Manafort, by the way, because FBI investigators seldom hesitate in collecting evidence when they want it. Why not do it now? At this point, Congress is investigating the Department of Justice. They'll have and the FBI. They will have no communications with them because they are believing at the highest levels in Congress that all of this was abused. And then we've got this story out today that, while FBI Gate, that's the bombshell, one after another exploding, that the man at the center of the worst scandal in the Bureau's history, James Comey, well, he's busy tweeting away because, Congressman John Ratcliffe tweeted, quote, the thousands of texts that Trey Gowdy and I reviewed today revealed manifest bias among top FBI officials against President Trump, both before and after President Trump was elected. We know that they hated both Strzok and Lisa Page hated him. F Trump and the rest of it, the text between them. But the texts then talk about Strzok and Page referencing a secret society. What's the secret society? And a little more than 3 hours later, the disgraced FBI director, James Comey, appeared to respond to Ratcliffe's tweet with a cryptic message. Good to read reports of people standing up for what they believe in. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. MLK, which begs the question. Comey, was he the chairman of this secret anti-Trump society? He's so highfalutin, thinks at the end of the day, him giving Hillary the pass, him giving her the pass, meant that she got to continue to run for president. They cleared the way for her. If it was Donald Trump, he would have been arrested and charged. I mean, it's unbelievable. Anyway, you may think back, if you remember Comey's testimony, remember it was closely coordinated with the special counsel. Remember that? A source close to James Comey told Fox News at the time that the former FBI director Senate testimony had been closely coordinated with Robert Mueller. Robert Mueller didn't have this job but for James Comey. I mean, all of this is so incestuous and so inanely corrupt, it should take your breath away in all of this. I mean, let me just go over some of the more interesting details here, because it's almost like a novel being written that you can't believe. And I will say this in terms of vindication. I've been telling everybody the media is wrong. How could the media miss the biggest story of their lifetime? So much bigger than Watergate, as they've been focused on a phony Russia collusion story. I mean, it's you got the attorney general now. The messages that the FBI is claiming to have lost are from a critical time in all of this. The 14th of December, 2016 to the 17th of May, 2017, the day that the special counsel gets appointed. Then magically the next day they show up again. Now, remember, and that was when Trump thought that he was being wiretapped, all these other issues coming up, and James Comey being fired, the special counsel being named. So the messages missing are from the entire period when all of this is going down. Probably would reveal a lot. And now the question is, how do we retrieve these text messages? How do we get them back? Where is the phone? Is it metadata stored? Do they have any backups? How long is it going to take? And why does this keep happening? Lois Lerner, oops, missing the emails. Oops, Hillary Clinton. Oops, I deleted them. I bleach bit them. I acid washed them. I broke up my devices. Oops, Debbie Wasserman Schultz's IT guy has busted up hard drives in his garage. It all reeks of law-breaking, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. And it's laughable they're trying to blame Samsung for all of this and a misconfiguration. Really, Samsung? How about instead of making excuses, they do their job? You know, this is all part of a much larger pattern in all of this. It happens all the time. You know, the FBI, remember they destroyed the laptops of Clinton aides with immunity deals? Who destroys evidence like that? Another corrupt deal in the making. You know, the FBI wouldn't be able to look at possible obstruction. They destroyed the evidence. Nobody makes that deal within law enforcement. And Clinton broke the law. It was plain and simple. Everybody knew it. And the only reason she got to continue was because of this cabal of Lisa Page, Peter Strzok, James Comey, Andrew McCabe. Let's find out what Bruce Orr's involvement in all of this is. His wife was the one putting that dossier together for Fusion GPS. He's meeting with Glenn Simpson of Fusion GPS. Fusion GPS never corroborated any of the dossier's false, salacious information. You know, then you got the text messaging from Strzok and Page that shows them. Now the attorney general is brought into this. Now, remember, in May, Comey, Strzok, and other top officials started drafting the Clinton exoneration before investigation. Now Loretta Lynch, at that point, was meeting with Bill Clinton on the tarmac. You know, at the end of June, we still haven't talked to Hillary Clinton at that point or the key players in that investigation. And then just days later, Lynch said she'd step aside. She'd accept the FBI's conclusion. And then Strzok texts Page. Remember Strzok and Page saying we needed an insurance policy. Now, at this point, Strzok is writing, well, the timing, meaning of the meeting with Clinton and Loretta Lynch on the tarmac, looks awful. And then Page says, yeah, it's a real profile in courage since she knows no charges will be brought. That's before they ever interviewed Hillary Clinton. The fix was in. It was rigged. Everything in this case was rigged. It's despicable. We are corrupting the entire constitutional process in this country if this is allowed to go on without major ramifications for the people involved and jail time for these people involved. All right, I'm going to try and just take the time and go through this slowly and explain everything to you in light of what we are discovering kind of hour by hour and day by day here. Now, there's got to be a way to get these 5 crucial months of texts. Now, I know a lot of you on Twitter, you're like, all right, release the memo. Here's what I've heard about the memo. Let me tell you what my sources are telling me. There was a letter that was signed by, let's see, Goodlatte, Devin Nunes, and Trey Gowdy that was going to be hand-delivered to the Department of Justice. Then the Republican Party, in caucus session, decided, apparently unanimously, that, no, we're not going to the FBI. We're not going to the Department of Justice. We're investigating the Department of Justice. We're investigating what has gone on here, especially in light of the Strzok Page memos and the missing critical 5 months we've got here. It happened with Lois Lerner 2 years before we ever got those emails. Oh, we can't find them. Hillary's 33,000 deleted emails, acid wash, bleach pit, breaking with hammers with devices, no SIM cards, and then, of course, broken up hard drives and Debbie Wasserman Schultz's IT guy. I guess the lesson here is, and don't quote me, if you're in trouble, break everything, destroy everything, get rid of everything. Now, forensic people, really smart people, are telling me there are ways to recover this. It took 2 years to get Lois Lerner's emails back. But the reason they're covering up is because what you have is an attempted coup. What you have is an attempt to allow the tools of the intelligence, those powerful tools, to be used to influence a presidential election, coupled with a bought and paid for phony Russian propaganda dossier. And then it was used also in the court system to spy on a presidential opposition party, an opposition candidate, and an incoming administration and a president-elect. This makes Watergate look like, stealing a Snickers bar from your local candy store. It's that big, it's that corrupt, it's that deep, it's that profound. It should be to everybody. And I don't care if you're a liberal, conservative, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, you should care. Because they've shredded the Constitution. They've shredded the Fourth Amendment. And the deep state thought they knew better than the American people. Now it's coming. America's chickens are coming home to roost. All right, 25 now till the top of the hour. 800-941-SEAN is our toll-free telephone number. You want to be a part of the program. There's so much to get to here. We've got a history. I'm not sure if I ought to end up going through all of this, but the history of Comey sharing memos with Mueller. And, I'm telling you right now, this stinks to high heaven. And I want to go through this a little bit more slowly, especially in light of now we have Strzok and Page discussing how to get rid of their texts, because this is problematic. Because now you're talking about full-on obstruction and probably destruction of evidence, which is part of a pattern of Obama administration officials, from Lois Lerner and, the officials that were leading the charge, unfairly going after conservatives with using the power of the IRS in that case. And the IRS said, well, the emails are lost because of a system crash. Now they're blaming Samsung in this particular case. Every time the walls are closing in on anybody Obama administration related, just key evidence just seems to magically disappear at just the right time. When it keeps happening, it defies logic to believe this crap. And it is a bunch of crap, and it's a bunch of lies. And there's what we're talking about here is this is their go-to MO. When they are cornered, they destroy. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the IT aide scandal with the smashed hard drives in the garage. Of course, the aide's lawyer denies it, but okay. Then you got these newly released text messages, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, Hillary loving, Trump hating, individuals. Lisa Page is the counsel working closely with Andrew McCabe. They're the three that talk about an insurance policy. God forbid if Donald Trump wins the election. I think we now know what the insurance policy is. And then we learned from the text messages yesterday, that before they even interviewed Hillary Clinton, that Loretta Lynch knew there was not going to be any type of charges brought against Hillary Clinton. And then you add to that what she did, which was so wrong, meeting on the tarmac with Bill Clinton. But all you can conclude here is that there was a circle of individuals that decided that Hillary Clinton had the right to be the Democratic Party's choice for president. Because if the rule of law were equally applied to Hillary, she violated numerous laws and committed numerous felonies, not the least obstruction of justice, destroying subpoenaed emails, 33,000, acid washing, bleach pit, mishandling classified information, destroying classified information. You see how it's all beginning to tie together here. This house of cards is now in the process of crumbling. And I know it's taken a long time, and I know it gets confusing for a lot of people. I'm studying this full time, and I'm telling you I can get confused in the middle of this. And I'm doing my best to make sure that everybody can fully, completely grasp and understand it, and reading everything possible so I can break it down so we can understand here. They knew Hillary Clinton wouldn't be prosecuted for the crime she committed because they put the fix in. Struck, Comey, exonerating before investigating. Apparently, Loretta Lynch is in the loop, Lisa Page is in the loop, and it appears McCabe is in the loop. All right, so all of those people now, as I've been saying, all these people need to be fired, and then they need to be investigated. And then I would imagine charges need to be brought in these cases. That's what I'm suggesting to everybody here. Back in May, remember, it was Strzok and other top FBI officials writing the exoneration statement. They hadn't interviewed Hillary or 17 other key witnesses in the case. I've never heard of an exoneration letter being written before the investigation has even begun for the most part. It means it's rigged. It means the fix is in. Now we learned yesterday the Attorney General Loretta Lynch meeting Bill Clinton on the tarmac, 40-minute meeting. They weren't talking about their grandchildren for 40 minutes at this crucial moment in this timeline here. They were talking about exonerating Hillary so that she didn't get arrested before the general election at that point, because she was already pretty much had we knew the fix was in. Now we know that the fix was in from the beginning. And then Lynch also told Comey, hey, don't call this investigation an investigation. Call it a matter. You see how it all begins to tie together. And then days later, when Lynch said she would step away from the email investigation, she says, and this is a key moment, she would accept whatever the FBI's conclusion is, because she had the right to override that. All right, so now you got Comey and Strzok writing the exoneration. Now you got the Attorney General signing off on the deal that they exonerate Hillary. And then we learn that it's a profile in courage of Loretta Lynch to, it was bad timing, though, her meeting Bill Clinton on the tarmac. But it was a profile in courage considering she knew that there wouldn't be any charges brought against Hillary. That's July 1st of 2016. They didn't interview Hillary Clinton till the 4th of July weekend. It was all determined in advance. It was a dog and pony show. The fix was in. Now think about the consequences. What if you fixed a race in horse racing? Are there big consequences for fixing races? What if there's point shaving for bettors in basketball games or football games? You ever hear about those scandals? Well, what if the fix is in to allow somebody that should have been indicted and likely put in jail, you put the fix in with the highest ranking law enforcement officials in the country, the AG and the FBI director, to allow one candidate to break laws they cover up for this individual, to allow that candidate to defeat the candidate that all of them are on record hating. And then in the process of all of this, you ignore she rigged the primary election, you fixed her illegal activities, then she buys a phony Russian dossier, and then the phony Russian dossier designed to influence the general election, and then the dossier full of lies is used to get a FISA warrant to spy on the opposition party in the lead up to the election and set a trap for the president-elect and those around him after the election. And you're thinking, Hannity, you've just jumped the shark. All of that now is provable. All of that happened in the United States of America. And if Lisa Page, for example, if Strzok and Page and Lynch all knew charges weren't going to be recommended against Clinton, you've got to imagine that Mr. Insurance Policy Discussion Andrew McCabe himself, that he knew Hillary was going to go free. Only people that didn't know it were us. I guess we're the suckers in this game because we're the ones that believe in free and fair elections. We don't think the top people in our Department of Justice and our FBI are going to betray us this way and put the fix in this way. But that's what's happened. We also need to know what Rod Rosenstein's role in all of this is. But if you're counting the characters here, Lisa Page, Peter Strzok, why are they still working for the FBI? Why is Andrew McCabe still working for the FBI? I don't care if he's retiring in March. Fire him now. And then it raises questions about Bruce Orr. He's meeting with Fusion GPS before and after the election. His wife, Nellie, is literally one of the people hired by Fusion GPS to put the salacious, phony Russian propaganda dossier together. Why are they still working? Why is Bruce Orr still working? Where's Rod Rosenstein? I want to know if Rod Rosenstein, I want to know whether or not he extended the FISA warrant when he got into a position of power because of Jeff Sessions' recusal and all of this. And then the message between Strzok and Page and talks about a change to Comey's Clinton exoneration letter. Now, remember, the statement in the exoneration before investigation originally referenced Clinton's emailing President Obama when she was, quote, on the territory. In other words, she was overseas. And she is emailing on a private server Barack Obama, the president. Now, the part that mentioned Obama was then altered to say, quote, senior government official. Okay, Obama does classify as a senior government official, but he was the president of the United States. So Obama had to have known Clinton was using a private email server, which he denied. So now he's up to his eyeballs in this. And in terms of other developments, we've got Republican efforts to release the memo. You got to keep pressuring your members of Congress. Release the memo. Stay on Twitter, Facebook, and all of and go out there. By the way, I don't, except for tweeting out aspects of my show, I'm not communicating anymore on social media after we have, how many times have we been hacked now?
I mean, too many to count.
Or what'd you say?
It really takes my voice away.
First of all, say first of all.
First of all.
What's the matter? You sick today?
Enjoying this.
Or what'd you say?
You're going to miss me tomorrow.
I just ordered you to stay home tomorrow.
And you're going to miss me.
Okay, I said you must stay home tomorrow. It's not an option to come into work tomorrow.
To me, more is staying home.
Is that who you're calling yourself? Yeah. Sounds more like a SEAL to me.
Be nice.
So we've been hacked.
Stop being mean.
And now the Turkish, whoever this band of Turkish hackers have been out there hacking everybody.
It's actually pretty serious. I mean, this cyber warfare that they're waging against people, and I'm really, it's shocking how little Facebook and Twitter is doing.
Can you explain it in more detail so we can understand?
Yeah, let me get into greater detail so that the universe cannot hear a word.
First of all,
all right. Well, I'll stop being mean. Everyone's going to say this is mean. All right. So the Republicans are demanding the release of the 4-page. We need the release of the memo, and I'm heard it's going to shock the conscience. And the release of the memo, by the way, is only the tip of the spear there too. And now you also have to ask another question: where has your media been? A year chasing a rabbit around a track of a false narrative, a false story, with breathless and hysterical reporting that came to nothing. Nothing. There's never been any Trump-Russia collusion in this. But there is. Hillary Clinton bought and paid for Russian lies in this, all designed to influence an election. And that phony lying document she paid for used as a predicate and as the excuse to get a FISA warrant. That court was lied to with Russian lies that Hillary paid for. It's so corrupt. It's one of the biggest scandals in American history, and our colleagues in the media missed the whole thing. It's going to be interesting to see. And they can't admit they're wrong now. They're so married to their own phony narrative. You know, words like shocking, jaw-dropping, alarming, shredding the Constitution. People will go to jail. That's all the stuff that I hear about those that have seen the memo. Why isn't it out, Hannity? We're pushing to get it out. My sources are telling me probably not until next week, but maybe this week. That's what they're telling me, and I'm talking to people. I'm pushing it every day. There are people in the House leadership, they won't even respond anymore to me. Because I've sent text to Paul Ryan. He will not respond anymore. He's probably like, telling people, get Hannity off my back. He's a pain in my ass. I don't care I want the truth. We need to see the memo. Release the memo. Find the text messages. Do your jobs. It's unbelievable. We need to know the truth about this abuse of power, the weaponization of the powerful tools of intelligence, the abuse of FISA warrants, and how the Clinton bought and paid for phony dossier was used to spy on the Trump campaign. You know, call 202-224-3121. Call your members of Congress, although half of them are home. You know, when you look at Clinton fixed the primary, I mean, I just keep telling you. You know, I don't want to this is not about patting myself on the back. Everything that we have been reporting since last year has now turned out to be true. And it's even worse than we thought. And there's still so much more to come. And there's so many different investigations we're involved in now. I mean, it's hard to keep them straight. Now, this is only about the dossier and the email server scandal and trying to fix, you know, abusing FISA warrants and trying to fix an election and covering it all up and how corrupt the highest members of our intelligence community and our DOJ and our FBI are. But this doesn't even touch Uranium One. And that may turn out to be a much bigger scandal when all's said and done. So much happening. So much to get to. So little time. All right, we've got Newt Gingrich coming up today. We've got our experts, Bill Binney and Phil Hannity are going to join us today. Also, Jim Jordan stops by today and much more. All right, fighting harder than ever to get to the truth, and we're making progress together, and full vindication is on its way, and I want the memo released. We deserve the memo is the beginning. For some of you, you think the memo is just the end. No. I don't want you to get your expectation. The memo will show widespread abuse of FISA, surveillance, and other issues, and it will name names. Beyond that, we've got a long way to go from there. But it's full vindication, that I can tell you. All right, we got Newt Gingrich, we got Bill Binney, we got Phil Hannity, we got Jim Jordan, and Steve Ronnebeck is back. He lost his son 3 years ago yesterday to a dreamer. We'll continue.
We learned today in the thousands of text messages that we reviewed that perhaps they may not have done that. There's certainly a factual basis to question whether or not they acted on that bias. We know about this insurance policy that was referenced in trying to prevent Donald Trump from becoming president. We learned today about information that in the immediate aftermath of his election, that there may have been a secret society of folks within the Department of Justice and the FBI, to include Page and Strzok, that would be working against him. I'm not saying that actually happened, but when folks speak in those terms, they need to come forward to explain the context with which they use those terms.
Congressman Gowdy, do you want to expound on the secret society idea?
Sure, I wish I could. I wish I'd been the one who either sent that text or received it. You have this insurance policy in the spring of 2016, and then the day after the election, the day after what they really didn't want to have happen, there's a text exchange between these two FBI agents, these two supposed to be objective, fact-centric FBI agents, saying perhaps this is the first meeting of the secret society. So, of course, I'm going to want to know what secret society are you talking about, because you're supposed to be investigating objectively the person who just won the Electoral College.
Congressman Gowdy, with regard to these new texts and the idea that there could be a special counsel, a second special counsel requested to look into this, how are you pursuing that?
Well, these texts are incredibly important, Martha, for a number of reasons, both what's there and what's not there. So lay aside this glaring 5-month gap in text that the world's premier law enforcement agency somehow missed. Lay that aside. What we have seen, what Johnny and I saw today, was a text about not keeping text. We saw more manifest bias against President Trump all the way through the election into the transition. And I saw an interesting text that Director Comey was going to update the President of the United States about an investigation. I don't know if it was a Hillary Clinton investigation, because remember that had been reopened in the fall of 2016, or whether it was the Trump investigation. I just find it interesting that the head of the FBI was going to update the President of the United States, who at that point would have been President Obama.
All right, that was Trey Gowdy and Congressman Ratcliffe. And what is the secret society within the DOJ and the FBI that they're talking about that convened after the election? Now we have more Strzok and Page text messages. And then, of course, the 5 missing months during the key period of time when we'd want to know things. Now we're beginning to put together a scenario here. Remember the first batch of Strzok and Page text messages, they go on to say, I want to believe the path you threw out for consideration in Andy's office. We believe Andrew McCabe, that there's no way he, meaning Trump, gets elected, but I'm afraid we cannot take that risk. It's like an insurance policy in the unlikely event you die before you're 40. Okay, now we put that together with the text message that came out yesterday. And in one exchange, Strzok and Page are talking back and forth, and they're specifically discussing Loretta Lynch's announcement that she's going to accept the FBI's decision on the Clinton email investigation. And anyway, then the story about Bill Clinton meeting Loretta Lynch on the tarmac comes up, and Strzok texts Page, ugh, the timing looks like hell. And then she writes, this is awful timing. In a later exchange, she adds, it's a real profile in courage, and she knows no charges will be brought. Now, we already know that Strzok and James Comey were writing an exoneration of Hillary months before they ever investigated Hillary Clinton. And if you look at the timeline of that text that I just mentioned, well, that was July 1st. Hillary Clinton wasn't interviewed till the weekend of the 4th of July, 3 days later. And then this gap of we have a 5-month gap in, oops, they're missing. Oops, they're gone. Oops, we can't find them. Well, at that time, very key things happened. The dossier happened. The Flynn interview happened. We know that Comey was fired at that time. Special counsel Mueller was appointed May the 17th, and all of a sudden the texts pick up again on May 18th. So we lost 5 months of text messaging. They ramped up their investigation after Trump won the nomination. Now we're hearing about a secret society meeting the day after the election, and Trump actually won. And the FBI edited out communication between President Obama and Secretary Clinton in Comey's draft July 5th exoneration statement. Why wouldn't they let the public know that? And the how did the Attorney General, how did Peter Strzok, how did James Comey, how did Lisa Page, and Andrew McCabe all know that they were never going to bring charges in Hillary's email investigation? Joining us now with his insight, former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich. There's a lot to absorb here, but as the historian, I've got to ask you to look at this from the Watergate perspective. You know, we found our 18 and a half minute gap, apparently, and it's a 5-month gap of text messages.
Look, this whole thing, you know, you couldn't write a novel like this because it wouldn't be believable. If you believe that the text they were sending each other was accurate and candid, there's a smoking gun, first of all, that they believe that the Attorney General knew that Clinton would not be charged with anything before she was interviewed, which may explain why the interview was not under oath, because the whole thing was a charade. It also suggests to you that when the Attorney General met with President Clinton on that airplane in Arizona, they both probably already knew that they were going through a dance, but nothing was going to come of it. You now have, I mean, this idea of 4.5 months, you know, part of what I don't understand is Hillary Clinton's people had to take a hammer and bleach in order to try to make sure they couldn't find information. Surely somewhere, either the NSA or the FBI or somebody is going to be able to track down all of these text messages. It is almost beyond belief that the key players happen to lose 4.5 months of text messages.
Oh, wait a minute, but it happened with Lois Lerner. Lois Lerner's was gone for 2 years, and then we found them. Hillary Clinton deleted 33,000 subpoenaed emails, and then she acid washed the hard drives with bleach pit, and then she had one of her, employees smashing any mobile devices with hammers. Debbie Wasserman Schultz's IT guy, well, he had broken, smashed hard drives in his garage, government hard drives. It seems like this is now the go-to option. Just destroy everything.
Well, and what that, as I've said before, talking with you both on radio and TV, this is clearly, by any plausible standard, the most corrupt senior Justice Department and senior FBI we have ever seen in American history. And it's frightening. I mean, here you had the people who are supposed to enforce the law, who are engaged in a conspiracy to undermine the new president, to protect the Democratic nominee. I mean, it seems to me they're not going to possibly avoid having an independent counsel go into this whole thing, and that you're going to have Comey at risk. You're going to have, remember, the deputy who they're referring to, whose office they were meeting in, his wife had been a candidate for the state senate, and I believe got $900,000 in donations from the Democrats. So you have a whole issue there of whether he should have, at a minimum, recused himself from anything involved in this, because there's patent obvious bias involved. Every time you turn around in this case, something new comes out, and it's ironically, after all their attacks on Clinton on Trump, all of the real evidence is coming out about the Democrats. And you'll notice one of the texts that was not lost was the one where Strzok says, I really don't want to do the Mueller thing because I know as the guy who's been the deputy.
Yeah, there's nothing happened.
There's nothing there.
There's no there.
I mean,
well, what about the fact that what do you make of this secret society that they're discussing here, and they're discussing, Strzok and Page, how to remove text messages before the text messages went missing? In other words, they have a text out there about eliminating the text. That sounds like obstruction to me.
Well, certainly. And what you have to ask yourself is whether or not there was ever a true secret society. Who did they think was in the secret society? Did they think that the deputy head of the FBI was? It was his office they were talking in. Did they think Comey was? He's the guy who basically exonerates Hillary Clinton and refuses to ask her questions under oath. I mean, just go down the list. And you have to say to yourself that there is more than enough here already to justify a full-blown investigation and to justify bringing in an independent counsel.
Here's what I need to ask you. This is a very important question. Now, you're right, you couldn't write this in a novel. But you have Hillary Clinton. We now know, Donna Brazile told us, she rigged the primary election. Bernie Sanders supporters had no shot. It was rigged from the get-go. Then you've got now evidence that, in fact, Comey and Strzok, and it looks like Loretta Lynch is in the loop somehow, and I've got to believe Andrew McCabe, that the fix is in on the email server investigation by them. And it's profound because they're writing the exoneration before the investigation, which, they didn't even interview Hillary till July 4th. They're doing this in May. And they even take away the legal standard gross negligence out of it. They take that foreign entities actually hacked into Hillary's email server. Then you've got Hillary and her campaign paying $12 million, funneling it through a lawyer. She's running the DNC, according to Donna Brazile. That money's funneled through the same lawyer to produce a dossier with Russian propaganda and lies so that they can kind of rig the general election. Now, then that phony dossier is used to get a FISA warrant to spy on an opposition candidate, presidential candidate, in an election year. And then they spy on the candidate, and then they spy on a president-elect and his team, all of which is illegal. And especially fundamentally, she was guilty as hell in terms of mishandling classified top secret special access program information and destroying such. All of that, had she not gotten the pass from Comey and company, she wouldn't have been the nominee, and it would have put the party in chaos. So they made a decision to put her above the law. I mean, you can't write that, and what I'm saying is indisputable at this point.
Well, I think you're exactly right. I think what you had here is a decision, and this goes back to the entire corruption of the Clinton system, the corruption of the foundation, the sheer scale of money that these people were engaged in, the degree to which they were willing to do things. They basically believed that there was no law as far as Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton were concerned, and they had an entire network of people who came to share the same belief. And I mean, that's the conclusion I reach, is that this was a degree of absolute not even thinking about the law. They thought that their job was to run America, and if that meant that they had to break the law and they had to try to destroy Trump and they had to do a variety of other things, they were going to do it. And I also agree with you. I think the person in some ways who has the greatest grievance here has to be Bernie Sanders, because it is so clear.
He actually accepted it and went along with it. All right, well, stay right there. Former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, his best-selling book, Vengeance. All right, as we continue, former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, as we now continue our investigation into what has now become a colossal mess, The danger here, I want you to put your historian hat on. Watergate was a third-rate break-in to get opposition information, steal information in the course of a presidential campaign, and then it was about a cover-up. Now we're talking about weaponizing the powerful tools of intelligence and lying in the process, using bought and paid for Russian lies to go after a presidential candidate, influence the electorate, and basically try and steal an election with that phony information, and in the process have the government do the spying and the leaking and be involved in all of this. How much worse on a scale compared to Watergate is this?
Well, they're not at all comparable. I mean, Watergate was in some ways part of the old order in which Nixon felt like he was constrained by the law. And ultimately, the people around him were constrained by the law. These are people who are blatantly rigging the game at every level, and who, I think, had Clinton won, we would have learned nothing of this scandal. And it should scare people. I mean, you're talking here about elements of the Justice Department, elements of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, deciding that they would break the law in order to stop the American people's choice from becoming president. Now, think about the meaning of that. This is totally different, I think, than the Watergate problem. This is really a very profound threat, because if we don't get to the bottom of this, and if we don't make it clear that you simply can't do things like this, we run the risk of eventually, over time, people deciding that they're just going to randomly enforce the laws they care about, and will begin to resemble one of those third world dictatorships where the power of the state props up the rich and the powerful and crushes dissent, and Venezuela being a current very painful example. And I think that this is truly, I know of no occasion in American history. In fact, I'll challenge our audience to email you if they come up with one. I know of no occasion in American history where we have seen the power of the government and the power of the police forces used
then let me ask
the way
this.
they have been used here.
This is the biggest political scandal in my lifetime, and maybe even when all is said and done in the history of the country. You've had the left-wing media in this country fixated on Trump-Russia collusion. They have ignored the biggest story of their lives. They are complicit in a lot of ways, because you would think that there are some journalists now looking at all this saying, oh, my God, what has happened? Where are they in this moment when you would think their better selves are called to greatness? Sir, thank you. We'll see you on TV, I think, tonight. Thank you, former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. 800-941-SEAN is our toll-free telephone number. We have Congressman Jim Jordan. He's been railing about all of this. Also, Bill Binney will be joining us, and Phil Haney. And how can we recover this information? Steve Ronnebeck, who lost his son, Grant Ronnebeck, is going to talk about the immigration debate and much more. Straight ahead.
There are a couple of interesting emails. One was November 14, 2016, right after the election, where Lisa Page texts Strzok and says, God, being here makes me angry. Lots of highfalutin national security talk. Meanwhile, we have our task ahead of us. Now, our is capitalized. I mean, are they talking about implementing their plan? So that's in November. And then on May 19th, again, we've got a big gap, 5-month gap, and now the texts begin again. This is 2 days after Mueller was just appointed special counsel. Strzok writes, they're talking back and forth about their futures, the FBI and the recent appointment in Mueller. They're talking about, what they ought to do. And it indicates that they're considering joining that Mueller special counsel investigation. Strzok says, quote, you and I both know the odds are nothing. If I thought it was likely, I'd be there, no question. I hesitate in part because of my gut sense and concern there's no big there. In other words, Peter Strzok, who was the FBI Deputy Assistant Director of the Counterintelligence Division, the man who had a plan to do something because he just couldn't abide Donald Trump being president, is saying that in his gut sense is that there's no big there when it comes to the Mueller special counsel investigation. Doesn't know that he really wants to join that because his gut sense is there's no big there.
Wow.
I think that's kind of jaw-dropping.
All right, 24 now till the top of the hour, 800-941-SEAN. You want to be a part of the program. By the way, those of you wondering, well, how are we ever going to retrieve the 5 months of missing texts? We'll check in with our security experts, Bill Binney and Phil Hannity, coming up later in the program today. Joining us now, he's been amazing in trying to chip away at this now what is a huge, massive scandal, is Congressman Jim Jordan of the great state of Ohio. Did you hear Trey Gowdy and Congressman Ratcliffe talking about a secret FBI society? What the hell? What is it?
Well, who knows? That's why we got to talk to Strzok. We got to talk to Page, and hopefully we'll got to find these 5 months of missing text messages. But you know what's funny too is Sean, what Senator Johnson was saying, that there's no there. What Peter Strzok was texting back to Lisa Page. Yet he still joined the team. He still went on. He doesn't think there's anything there. He doesn't want to do it, but he does. Now, why does he do that? Is it to implement their, quote, insurance policy that they talked about before the election when they were trying to put their finger on the scale and help Secretary Clinton be the next president and hurt Donald Trump? Is it part of their insurance policy that he still goes on the team even though he doesn't think anything there, that there's anything there? That's what we need to find out as well. What is this insurance policy that they've referenced in previous texts all about?
Okay, I think, though, if we go to the insurance policy and then take it a step further, I think we're beginning to understand. Now, one other thing to add to that, we've got now Strzok and Page discussing how to remove text messages before the text went missing. So I think that's pretty interesting. But you're right. If we go to the original text message, I want to believe the path you threw out for consideration in Andy's office. That has to be Andrew McCabe, that there's no way he gets elected, meaning Trump. But I'm afraid that we can't take that risk. It's like an insurance policy in the unlikely event you die before you're 40. And then what we received yesterday, I think, is very, very clear. And remember, they didn't interview Hillary Clinton until July 4th. Peter Strzok and James Comey were writing the exoneration back in early May. And they took out the gross negligence standard. They took out the foreign entities that had hacked and gotten the emails and top secret special access program information. Anyway, and then we had the whole issue being exposed of Loretta Lynch meeting Bill Clinton on the tarmac. Now, this new text comes in. It's dated July 1st, 3 days before the FBI interviews Hillary Clinton, but the exoneration's already written. And so, anyway, Peter Strzok writes Lisa Page, the timing looks like hell. Yeah, it's awful timing, she says, and then adds, it's a real profiling courage, and since she knows no charges will be brought. So Strzok knows it, and Page knows it. Loretta Lynch, they're saying, knows it, and I got to assume McCabe knows it.
Yeah, the top people knew it. The Clinton investigation the fix was in from the get-go. That's what all the evidence suggests. They went through the motions to make it look like they ran a real investigation. And then you have the text messages during the campaign that say we can't take the risk that Donald Trump's going to be elected by the American people. We need an insurance policy. You have the text message the day after the election. Now we need to implement our plan, Lisa Page says to Peter Strzok. And then you have this text message says, even though there's no there, and even though I don't want to join Mueller's team, I'm going to. He went ahead and did it. Why did he do it? Seems logical to say he did it to implement their plan, whatever that was.
Well, doesn't it suggest when they're discussing, how they're going to remove the text messages and get rid of them, well, doesn't that sound like an effort to obstruct justice at some point and hide something?
Sure sounds like it, but we'll have to see. What we need to find out is these 5 months of missing messages, which and I know you talked about this yesterday.
Well, where are the phones? Where are the physical phones?
I assume the Justice Department still has it. We don't have an answer. I talked with Senator Johnson's staff people today who are great staff people and said, do we know where the phones are? They said, we don't, but we're going to find out. So does the FBI have them? Does the Justice Department have them? Did they give them back to the carrier? I don't know. Let's hope they have those devices, the actual physical phones themselves, so we can figure out what's there. And let's hope that we're also going to, and I believe that talking with Senator Johnson's team, they're going to ask the carriers to give the information and help us figure out where these missing 5 months are.
All right, so this gets even more strange because while one FBI scandal after another is being exposed here, and I'm not talking about rank and file, I'm talking about people like McCabe and Comey and Strzok and Page and and a bunch of others. Looks like Rod Rosenstein. I want to know his role in all of this. It appears. So last night, Congressman Ratcliffe tweets out the thousands of texts that Trey Gowdy and I reviewed today revealed manifest bias among top FBI officials against President Trump. The text between Strzok and Page referenced a, quote, secret society. Well, a little more than 3 hours later, disgraced ex-FBI director James Comey appeared to respond to Ratcliffe's tweet with a cryptic message saying, well, good to read reports of people standing up for what they believe in. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy, quoting MLK. Which begs the question, was Comey the chairman of this FBI secret anti-Trump society?
We don't know, but we do know, like you said, Sean, there are top people whose names keep coming up. Why did Jim Baker, general counsel of the FBI, get reassigned just 4 weeks ago? Andrew McCabe's name comes up all the time. Andrew McCabe, who him and his wife met with Terry McAuliffe while his wife's running for state senate. He met with Terry McAuliffe at the same time Terry McAuliffe's under investigation, for goodness sake. Andrew McCabe, Peter Strzok, Bill Priestap, Jim Baker, and Lisa Page. These key names keep coming up all the time. And then you get some context to it when you start looking at all these text messages back and forth between Ms. Page and Mr. Strzok. So all these people, we've interviewed Mr. McCabe, we've interviewed Mr. Rabicki, who's chief of staff at the FBI when this was all happening, but we need to get to these other people and find out the answers.
Well, how does this keep happening? I mean, Lois Lerner's emails were missing for 2 years. Hillary Clinton was subpoenaed by Congress to hand over 33,000 emails. She deletes them. Then she acid washes and bleach bits the hard drive. Then she has somebody that works for her bust up the devices with hammers. Then you got Debbie Wasserman Schultz's IT guy with busted up hard drives in his garage. You know, at some point here, there's a pattern. And, what are we going to do and how quickly are we going to hire the people that can recover this information forensically?
Yeah, we're going to do all we can, but you're right. I mean, it maybe if it was just the IRS, you could say, you expect incompetence at the IRS. But remember, this
No,
is
we
the
found
FBI.
those emails 2 years later.
Yeah, they found them, and then they destroyed the backup tapes at the facility in Martinsburg, West Virginia, and John Koskinen didn't tell us about it when he testified, by the way. But remember, this is Peter Strzok, deputy head of counterintelligence at the Federal Bureau of Investigation. This is not Lois Lerner, some bureaucrat in the IRS who has to plan to come after us, understand. But this is Peter Strzok, deputy head of counterintelligence at the FBI, and suddenly 5 months in a critical time period, December 14th, 2016, when all the unmasking's taking place, when there's all this back and forth between the intelligence community and President-elect Trump, when all that's happening, that's when it starts, December 14th, and just so happens to end on
let's
May
talk
17th,
about
2017.
Let's talk about all the events that occurred after that day, because this is the critical time period. The timeline matters here.
Sure does.
And if we look at the timeline, what do we have? Oh, that's when the Steele dossier comes out and is released by BuzzFeed. That's when Flynn is interviewed. Flynn's interviewed by Peter Strzok. Peter Strzok has an anti-Trump bias. And I would think that General Flynn's lawyers have to be reconsidering this guilty plea to lying to the FBI, especially because I believe that, in fact, they knew the answers to questions ahead of time because they had illegally surveilled and unmasked and then leaked raw intelligence. So they knew the answers. If either he misremembered or lied, they would have known. And that's why they got him there. And then they threatened to go after his son, from what I can gather. And then January 11th, Comey is fired. We don't have the text messages then. May 17th is when the special counsel is appointed. Comey's fired May 9th. And then all of a sudden, so we hadn't seen one text from December 14th of 2016 to right. May 17th, the day that special counsel Mueller is appointed. Doesn't that seem a little odd and convenient to you?
No, for that to be a coincidence, you got to be kidding me. And remember the broader framework, and I think this is important. Chuck Schumer, the head of the Democrat Party, Chuck Schumer says on January 3rd, 2017, just a few days before President Trump is going to be inaugurated as the next president, Chuck Schumer says, when you get in a fight with the intelligence community, they have 6 ways to Sunday to get back at you. So is all these deleted text messages, might they have something to do with the 6 ways to Sunday the intelligence community is trying to attack and target President Trump? Might it have something to do with that? Did they suddenly disappear because it was how they were targeting and trying to get back 6 ways to Sunday to the president-elect of the United States, and then after the president-elect of the United States? That's what concerns me. That should never be said by one of the top officials in our government is talking about the Intelligence Committee getting back at the person the American people elected president. It doesn't work that way in this country. But that's what I want to know. Why I want to see these 5 months of missing text messages.
Well, I mean, how quickly, expeditiously are we going to get on this? I've got to imagine the FBI should, or at least somebody in law enforcement has the best people that are capable forensically of pretty much recovering anything, right?
Yeah, they should be. Right. This is the FBI. This is not a bunch of hacks in the bureaucracy at the IRS. This is the FBI, and the guy we're talking about is deputy head of counterintelligence. He's supposed to be this genius. He fancies himself as the James Bond of the FBI. So come on.
All right, stay right there. More with Jim Jordan in just a second. 800-941-SEAN. Toll-free telephone number. You want to be a part of the program. Now we're going to talk to our computer experts, Bill Binney. He's going to join us. Phil Hannity later in the top of the next hour. All right, as we continue, Jim Jordan is with us, Congressman Ohio, and can you imagine where we are here? How did we get to the point Hillary Clinton rigs a primary? Hillary Clinton has Comey struck, exonerating her without even investigating the case, because she would have been arrested. She would have been indicted on the crimes that she committed on the email server. So they're basically protecting her because they've decided they want her over Trump. Then you've got Loretta Lynch apparently playing a role, according to these new struck page texts. Then you've got that phony Russian dossier Hillary Clinton bought and paid for with lies to really rig and fix the general election with lies against Donald Trump. And that phony bought and paid for Hillary dossier, Russian propaganda, is used against Trump to get a FISA warrant to spy on an opposition candidate in an election year. And then a president-elect, as he's coming into office, and sabotage him. And apparently now we have a special team of, FBI people and DOJ people that are organizing meetings to depose of the will of the people.
Scary,
isn't it?
And on top of all that,
is there anything I'm saying that's wrong there?
5 months of missing messages. And imagine this, Sean Hannity is being investigated by the FBI, and suddenly important information on your phone, you just delete it. Can you imagine what the FBI would do? IRS is looking into one of your many listeners out there, and they're looking into them, and they have documents that destroyed that are under.
By the way, this is
under a preservation order. They're in big trouble, but yet it continues to happen with folks who were in the Obama administration, in the bureaucracy during the Obama administration.
All right. Thanks, Jim Jordan, Congressman, Ohio. 800-941-SEAN. You want to be a part of the program. House Intel Committee Republicans refuse to share the secret memo with the FBI and the Justice Department. Why? Because they're investigating them. They have no choice. They can't trust them. Quick break. Right back. We'll continue. Can we retrieve those missing text messages? We'll check in with two experts, Bill Binney and Phil Hannity, coming up next.
Well, these texts are incredibly important, Martha, for a number of reasons, both what's there and what's not there. So lay aside this glaring 5-month gap in texts that the world's premier law enforcement agency somehow missed. Lay that aside. What we have seen, what Johnny and I saw today, was a text about not keeping text. We saw more manifest bias against President Trump all the way through the election into the transition. And I saw an interesting text that Director Comey was going to update the President of the United States about an investigation. I don't know if it was a Hillary Clinton investigation, because remember that had been reopened in the fall of 2016, or whether it was the Trump investigation. I just find it interesting that the head of the FBI was going to update the President of the United States, who at that point would have been President Obama.
Strzok says, quote, "You and I both know the odds are nothing. If I thought it was likely, I'd be there, no question. I hesitate in part because of my gut sense and concern there's no big there there."
All right, it gets stranger and stranger. Now they're talking about an FBI secret society at this point, which Comey's got a lot of explaining to do. And apparently Comey, well, he himself actually went before the special counsel. Now, he helped appoint the special counsel. He purposefully leaked to get the special counsel. And then he's handing over notes to Robert Mueller with his obvious bias involved in this. Then we got the news today that this guy Rybicki is leaving the FBI, and he was Comey's chief of staff. And by virtue of his position and his closeness to the director, well, that would mean he probably was involved in the Bureau's investigation into Clinton's private email server. All the classified documents contained therein, the mysterious reason why Comey chose not to charge Clinton with various crimes after initially deciding to do so. And for months, the FBI and the Department of Justice stonewalled all efforts to force Rybicki to appear on Capitol Hill to testify about what he knew on these matters. And while dodging Congress, Rybicki did speak with the Office of Special Counsel, an independent federal agency that handles whistleblower disclosures under legal protections against reprisals. And he reportedly informed the Office of Special Counsel of Comey's initial draft statement that Hillary did in fact commit crimes, and the subsequent change of language announcing the exact opposite. In other words, the exoneration that took place before the investigation. Anyway, a partial transcript of an August 2017 letter from the Senate Judiciary Committee to Chris Wray, in which Grassley and Graham excoriate Comey for prejudging the Clinton case with his exoneration statement before the investigation. Anyway, Rybicki was also privy to how the FBI appeared to have exploited the anti-Trump dossier that was funded by the Democratic Party, as well as the extent to which the agency used it as a vehicle to launch the investigation of the Trump and wiretap his campaign. And he testified last Thursday before 2 congressional committees behind closed doors. So it's pretty interesting that now he calls it quits here. I don't believe it's a coincidence. And again, this is now going to be unfolding quickly. Now the question is, what do we do about the 50,000 missing text messages in this crucial period of time? And that would be between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. Well, we know they both thought they had an insurance policy in case Trump won, and now we know that they both knew that there would never be an indictment of Hillary Clinton. And that also means that, I guess, Bruce Orr probably knew, and McCabe probably knew, and Comey did know. And now we find out that it's likely Loretta Lynch knows because of the text messages. But how do we get the 50,000 other text messages, which probably would be the most explosive? I'm just guessing here. Bill Binney is the former technical director of the NSA World Geopolitical and Military Analysis and Reporting Group, and Philip Haney is the author of See Something, Say Nothing, and a founding member of the Department of Homeland Security. Combined, they have nearly 80 years' experience in working in national security issues for this country. Welcome back, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bill Binney, once on this program, well, actually many times on this program, you said to me that every text, every phone call, every email is captured, metadata stored in some of these metadata centers like in Utah and elsewhere. Wouldn't that suggest that the text messages between Strzok and his girlfriend, mistress, Lisa Page, can be found?
Yes, they can, if NSA hasn't totally destroyed them by now. In other words, if the FBI wants to destroy information, they have to do it in 2 places, once at their offices and also at NSA, because NSA captures that too. And that's just coming out in a recent FISA court order that was released. So, and it talks about all the collection and the upstream program and things like that, and what the FBI's involvement in that to a certain degree is. Not the full story yet, but
would that be something that you'd have to manually go to maybe the metadata center at the NSA and do? And wouldn't there be a record of somebody going in there and destroying certain things?
Oh, yeah, that would be there, too. So, I mean, that could clearly show up and show culpability in a cover-up.
Let me ask you, Philip Haney, great to have you back. What is your take on all of this?
Well, you remember a couple years ago when we started talking, what was the main subject? Deletion of information from the law enforcement databases. This has actually been going on in one form or another for quite some time. It reminds me of a cynical game of musical chairs. No one wants to get caught when the music stops. And so people move around to protect themselves from the consequences of their abrogation of constitutional duty. But what really struck me, Sean, about all this is like we have 2 ropes tangled together. And it's one of the reasons why it's hard for us to follow all this. We have 2 major things going on. The use of true information for partisan political purposes to hurt people, and the creation of false information for the same reason. So they're blended together, and it's hard to tell where the true information ends and the false information begins. But from their side, they allow themselves permission to use whatever means necessary to destroy the lives and people of politicians and law enforcement officers.
But this is how profound this is. And we've talked about Watergate. Watergate's nothing compared to what we're discovering here. Because you got one candidate who rigs a primary. You've got now it's obvious that the decision was made long before an investigation that they were going to exonerate one political candidate that had committed crimes. So the investigation into Hillary's email server was rigged, and they had already drawn a conclusion to exonerate her before they do the investigation. Then Hillary goes ahead. I guess if you fixed the primary election, why not try to fix the general election? And she does that by hiring Fusion GPS that puts together a phony Russian propaganda dossier that is full of lies. That's to influence the American people in the general election. And then it's used as a means of obtaining a FISA warrant with fake, phony partisan information to spy on the opposition candidate in the lead up to the election, and then post-election a president-elect. Now, if that's not, and then on top of it, you've got all these plans in place, an insurance policy apparently put in place if, God forbid, Trump wins, and then it gets even worse than that.
That's exactly right. Because they were prepared, they thought, but they got caught off guard. They blinked for a half a second, and in that moment, Trump won the election. And they got caught off guard, just like getting blindsided in football.
So they left all these crumbs behind, but I've got to believe that there's 50,000 text messages, but in the key period of time, the critical period of time where so much is happening at once, when the dossier comes out, when General Flynn is investigated, when Comey is fired, when the special counsel is appointed, all that period, there's no text messages, but the day after Robert Mueller's appointed special counsel, that next day, they start texting again. Doesn't that seem a little curious to you, Bill Binney, that 5 critical months of information is missing?
Actually, it smells like a chip in the field. If you're a country boy like me, I'm pretty used to picking out a chip in the field a mile away so you don't step in it, and that's basically what's going on here. This just smells to high heaven. I mean, try to figure the random probability of the critical information to an investigation being deleted over and over again. That's been what's been going on at CIA, FBI, NSA. This is happening throughout the intelligence community and law enforcement. I mean, this shows the corruption. This is, in my mind, the main thing we have to face, and the Attorney General's got to stand up and do this, because if he doesn't, I mean, we have no judicial process that's worth anything anyway. I mean, it's just saying that the law applies to everybody except certain few, and that's basically what's been going on here.
Well, I mean, how do we get to the bottom of it? How are we ever going to recover, Philippine, these missing 5 months of text messages?
You have to have some people with technical smarts to go into NSA and go in to see if they haven't destroyed the equipment, they could perhaps recover a lot of them from that. Not much like the FBI would do if they had somebody's computer who had tried to erase stuff but didn't fully do the job. Then you could recover it that way. Otherwise, there may be backup somewhere in NSA that even NSA doesn't know about, and they could get it from there.
I mean, it's just not. It doesn't pass the smell test, Philippine. And then you hear about this secret FBI society meeting after Trump is elected because they didn't expect this to happen.
You're right, because just the admission that they lost the information, don't they realize how compromised, how incompetent they make themselves look to the American public? Who are we? Our secret clearance information, we just got notified for the 3rd time, Sean, that it was hacked. Who are we supposed to trust if the federal government and national security agents aren't even capable of safeguarding the
I've said this for the longest time. I mean, everybody doesn't like that Julian Assange was able to get information on us, but it's the same guy that hacked into NASA and the Department of Defense when he was 16. He's now in his 40s. If at some point it's got to be shame on you, but at some point, now that you know all these people are doing this, when does it become shame on me for allowing them to get through?
Well, we've come up to the breach. We've come up to the abyss, and Congress needs to go forward and not shrink back from it. When they investigated me, Sean, they scoured through my emails and my phone calls for years before the actual date of the the event that precipitated the investigation, which was the Boston bombing. And why did they do that? They were trying to do the same thing to me as they did to General Flynn. Find some point where I contradicted my testimony and then hammer me into the ground with it.
I mean, these are unbelievable times. All right, so where can we start in terms of the search to try and get these missing text messages? I mean, I got to believe that the phone would be the first place, right?
I would think you need to have. You can go to the phone companies and see what they've got stored. You could do it.
All right,
there,
let's assume for a minute they don't have it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then you have to go to NSA and have somebody with the authority to go right into their database and look and find the data. And it could do that basically from virtually any analyst terminal. If they've got IC Reach or XKeyscore query routines, they can get into that data there and recover it rather quickly. I mean, it shouldn't be a major issue.
But wouldn't it, if they have the phones, wouldn't they most likely forensically be able to pull that off the phone? I mean, in other words, I'm always told nothing you erase is ever really erased.
Well, I was talking about actually getting the transcripts of the phone calls or actually the audio of the phone calls.
Yeah, well, agreed. I mean, well, these are text messages. I mean, this is what people don't understand. They have such advanced equipment that literally they translate conversations you're having on the phone in real time into words. So you can read a real-time printout of what you're talking about.
Yeah, and so if you go, also you would get the text messages also because the phone number you pull. Yeah, you would get all of that at once.
Yeah. All right, we'll take a break.
The other thing to consider, Sean, is that this is assuming that they were the only two in the conversation. There had to be other people in some of those conversations. That means other phones were involved.
Well, we know that they discussed how to remove the text messages and hide them anyway. I mean, it's like they knew what they were doing was wrong, and that's an admission they knew what they were doing is wrong. All right, we'll take a break. More with Phil Hannity and Bill Binney on the other side. 800-941-SEAN is our number, and we'll come back and more with them straight ahead. Hannity, a big show tonight at 9. We'll continue. All right, as we continue with Bill Binney and Philip Hannity. All right, so if we have the real phones, is it possible that it's still on there? Isn't that what we're always told, Philip Hannity, that you never erase anything?
That's the cardinal rule of intelligence agencies. And that's the point. This is the premier law enforcement and or intelligence agency in the entire country. And we're supposed to believe, oops, we lost them. Well, what about all the other data that is being generated by the entire FBI and the agents that operate in the field? They have to have a safeguard. What if you drop your phone in the bathtub or you run over it or anything? They have to have a backup for it.
And what's your take, Bill Binney?
Well, yeah, I would say that even the Records Act requires them to keep those kinds of information.
Nobody stays by the Records Act. I mean, that's the least of the laws they're going to break.
I know, but internally in NSA, for example, this is the one I know of, they have procedures that automatically do that. So it's not a question of deleting just one file. You have to make sure you delete multiple backups too. And there's storage facilities that retain it for many decades. So it's not a. I don't think even NSA knows where all the copies are. So I think that's possible to even in spite of any effort they might make to erase it, it's even possible to recover it.
All right, Bill Binney, Philip Hannity, thank you both.
Grant was, he was just my buddy from the minute he was born. He just brightened everybody, my family, my friends. He was everything. Apolinar Altamirano had come in and wanted to buy cigarettes. Altamirano then pulled a gun and pointed it at Grant. Grant immediately offered up the cigarettes. And Altamirano then shot him point blank in the face. My son's death was completely preventable. Apolinar Altamirano had been in the country illegally since he was 14. He was a self-proclaimed member of the Sinaloa drug cartel, and the Mexican mafia. He had previously been arrested for sexually assaulting a woman, breaking into her house and sexually assaulting her and holding her captive for a week.
Let me thank my friend, my colleague, and our leader on the Democratic side for his passionate personal commitment to this issue involving the Dreamers and DACA. He has been by my side, and I've been inspired by his leadership from the start. And let me thank my colleagues. So many of you cast a vote that was very hard and very difficult because you believed, as I did, that the issue of immigration, the issue of the Dreamers, is the civil rights issue of our time. You stuck your necks out and said, I'm willing to go on record even if it's going to be hard to explain back home, and I will never forget that.
All right, Dick Durbin and now Chuck Schumer just earlier today. He withdraws the offer on Trump's wall after he got so embarrassed, I guess, by the shutdown debacle of the Democrats. The Schumer shutdown was a Schumer dud. 800-941-SEAN is our toll-free telephone number. The other tape you heard was that of Steve Ronnebeck. He's the father of Grant Ronnebeck, and his 21-year-old son was murdered. He was working overnight at a convenience store in Mesa, Arizona, and Ronnebeck's killer was an illegal alien who was released by ICE in 2013 after conviction for burglary and kidnapping involving drug dealing. Apparently it kept this woman hostage for a week, and all sorts of crimes were committed. Anyway, Ronnebeck took to social media this weekend to express just how hard it is to see these so-called leaders, elected officials in the U.S. protecting DACA recipients over American citizens. And he writes, so I sit here reading about the government shutdown, and all I think about is the 3-year anniversary of Grant's murder. It's Monday, yesterday. And as everyone remembers, Grant was murdered by a DACA recipient, and the monster executed Grant in cold blood. He was a dreamer brought here when he was 14. I have never once said all illegal immigrants are bad, but a lot of them are criminals. I miss my son every single day. My family has been devastated and ripped apart. So let me have my say, and I'll take the consequences. Without a wall on the southern border and extreme tightening of security, arrests and deportation of illegal aliens coming across the southern border, DACA is an issue that can be dealt with in March or even later in the year. Yes, DACA is important, but again, we need to stop the flow of the importation of drugs and humans and illegal goods and criminals and prior convicted felons that have been previously deported. Steve Ronnebeck joins us now, as well as Jessica Vaughn, Director of Policy Studies at the Center for Immigration Studies. Well, I don't have to venture a guess that these have been the 3 worst years of your life, and I don't know if it gets any better.
Oh, no, Sean, it doesn't. And, I just, the audacity of the Democrats, especially Chuck Schumer, to sit down at the bargaining table and basically say, we want it all and you get nothing, and then to turn around and pull the one thing that they said, okay, we'll compromise on. It's ridiculous. I just don't understand how they can do this and stonewall our president at every turn. You know, we talk about civil rights. The civil rights, what is this? The civil rights problem of the century. Well, Grant was constitutionally guaranteed the right to freedom and happiness and the pursuit of happiness. Well, where's my son's rights? They were violated.
Your son's doing everything right. He's working. He's 21 years old. He's in a convenience store. He's advancing in his life. And over a pack of cigarettes, a guy that had held a woman hostage for a week and put in jail, I forget how many years, he gets released only to go out and then over a pack of cigarettes kill your son.
Well, Sean, he didn't even do a day in prison. Not one day. He qualified for felony probation because he was able to plead down the charges.
But wasn't the charge that he had held this woman hostage for a week?
No, he was able to, because they filled her full of heroin for the week, he was able to just plead that down to felony burglary because she was not a competent witness.
Unbelievable, because he pumped her full of heroin and she doesn't have recollection. On average, the Department of Homeland Security apprehends over 1,100 people a day. with December marking the 8th month in a row of an increase in apprehensions. On January 14th, the DHS saw the number of apprehensions, at 1,400. Now, the DHS refuses entry to known or suspected terrorists every day, 50 every week, 2,500 every year. And yet we have this threat to our homeland. When I sat through a security briefing in Texas, Jessica Vaughn, I was shocked to learn in a 7-8 year period, 642,000 crimes, including some murders, were perpetrated against the people of Texas. That's just one state. That's over a short period of time. I would think everybody's united on this issue. Why not protect our borders? The president said we can have a door in the wall and we can vet people and they can come in as long as we know that they're not going to be committing crimes against our fellow citizens.
That's right. This isn't hard to understand. Americans understand it. We're all heartbroken to hear stories like Steve's about his son Grant. It's a tragedy, but one that was preventable. And that was all due to policy and to our failure to secure the borders. And that's why it's so frustrating to hear people like Senator Durbin and Senator Schumer say that the emergency is finding a solution for the Dreamers. That's really not a solution to our immigration problems. The president has laid out a very good plan. It was put together by senior officials at all the immigration agencies saying what needs to be done to secure the border, to stop the influx of illegal aliens from Central America, the unaccompanied minors and their families, to fix the broken asylum system, to implement mandatory E-Verify, to reduce chain migration, end the visa lottery, build some barriers at the wall, and prevent gang members from getting green cards and so on, a very fine list of things. And that ought to be a starting point. That's fixing the problem. Doing an amnesty for the Dreamers is really a sideshow to this, or it should be in terms of our priorities. The only piece of legislation on the table right now that would accomplish what the president has said needs to be done and what his career officials say needs to be done. And that's the House bill introduced by Representative Goodlatte. And, we ought to be doing that before any amnesty. We need to make sure all those things are working before an amnesty is enacted. We need to take care of sanctuary cities before an amnesty is enacted.
How about a sanctuary state? I mean, it doesn't get any...
Right, California, yes.
No.
It's outrageous. And now this judge in California has now said that the federal government needs to keep issuing renewals of DACA work permits. Well, that's an opportunity for Congress to say, okay, I guess there's no firm deadline. Why don't we do this to-do list first of enforcement needs and fixing the glaring problems in our immigration system that most Americans want to see fixed and agree need to be fixed, and then we'll talk about an amnesty. Unfortunately, they're rushing to do the amnesty.
Look, they always want to give you the tax increase or the spending increase. You never get the tax cut. You always get the amnesty, the consideration, and you never get the border security. It's just the way it is.
And they know that. That's why they're still coming in increased numbers at the border, as you mentioned. It's because of all this talk about amnesty.
3.6 million Dreamers, not 800,000, as previously thought. What do you want the Republicans to do, Steve? I mean, I know your testimony is powerful. You're not the only parent that I have interviewed over the years, especially in the last year and a half, that has lost a son or a daughter because of illegal immigration and killed by illegal immigrants. I mean, it's story after story. And I know maybe some people that think they want to be compassionate and do the right thing. I've got to wonder in my heart if they would be, if their thought process would change after you lose a member of your family, because I can't think of anything more devastating.
No, and there's not. I mean, the Republicans have to stand firm. The Republicans have to come together and support the president and his policies. Again, like Jessica said, DACA is pretty much a moot point. It really is. At this point in the game, it is a moot point. Without border security, even if we deport DACA members or the criminals that are DACA members, they're going to come back. They're going to head to California. They're going to head to Chicago. We have to have the border security. you're going to see more and more of this happening if we don't get it fixed. And it's not only that, it's the sexual assaults against children, it's the heroin, it's the other drugs that are coming across the border. I can't understand why the American people think that all of these DACA members are just wonderful people and they're just coming here for a better life. Yes, some of them are. But what about the criminals? What about the murderers, the drug dealers, the sexual deviants that are coming across our border, the MS-13 that is coming across our border? How many of the MS-13 have we deported? How many of them are already back in our country?
That's a good point.
It just doesn't stop. With chain migration, yes, 800,000 DACA members. With chain migration, you're looking, like you said, at 8.6 million because of chain migration. If just 10% of those chain migration are criminals, 10%.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Listen, I want to wish you the best. I know this is a tough week for you. It's the third anniversary since you lost your son, Grant, and you're in our thoughts and prayers. You're a powerful voice explaining to people the dangers here, and we thank you so much for being with us. And, Jessica, thank you for joining us as well. We appreciate it. It's so hard. I can't think anything worse than losing your child. Anything. And then you think, oh, they had this guy in custody and they let him go. It just makes it worse. There's culpability on the part of those that allowed that to happen. Otherwise, if we followed the law, it never would have happened. Just follow the law. All right, let's get to our busy phones here. Joe is in West Virginia. Joe, you're on the Sean Hannity Show. Hi.
Hello there. How are you?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
Super.
What's on your mind today?
Well, I just wanted to make a comment or two. We heard all this about the 5 months and specific days of text messages that were missing. And I know you talked about this some yesterday, but I used to work for a wireless carrier for about 25 years. I'm retired now. But I worked as a liaison for large government accounts, large business accounts, and also law enforcement. And I got subpoenaed many, many times, not personally, but requested subpoenas because that had to go to legal department. But many, many cases, records were subpoenaed for murder cases, for graft and corruption cases in the government. I could go on and on about that, but they got their text messages, and it was it was weeks or months past whenever that text messages were generated. It wasn't a 3-day cap like I heard yesterday.
Well, I had heard from different sources, and I'm getting mixed messages, that there might be records of text that took place, but they may not be the text messages themselves.
Oh, there'd be a record of the number that texted to and from.
Right, but it's the details. We need the information on what's on those texts.
I agree. The content would have been in those.
Right.
Now, every carrier may have their own policy, but the carrier I worked for was one of the 2 largest carriers in the country, and they kept detailed records. They had a very large legal department, and these guys always got what they needed. Like I say, one was a murder case. There were graft and corruption cases, and these were important bits of evidence they had to have, and they were there for them.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate your call, sir. Thank you for being with us. Yeah, we can get this information. Somehow, it's out there somewhere. Took 2 years to get lowest learners' emails. We can find them. All right, Hannity tonight, 9 Eastern on the Fox News Channel. All right, we bring back tonight Sarah Carter. Jim Jordan's going to join us. Jay Sekulow, Dan Bongino, Jesse Waters versus Jessica Tarlov, and a one-on-one against Vicente Fox. How did Mexico treat people from Central America? I will ask him tonight at 9, and the latest on this huge scandal that we are breaking. 9 Eastern. See you back here tomorrow. See you tonight at 9.